KMES English Medium Junior College welcome its 12th standard student for online lecture of psychology for chapter 5 Emotion. For the topic Plutchik'S model of emotion and physiological change during emotion. Students, in today's lecture, we are going to study chapter 5 Emotion about the topic Plutchik'S model and physiological change during emotion. Let's study each of these in detail. Five point 2.1 Plutchik'S model. It is represented by the wheel of emotion. He says that emotion evolves over a period of time. It has increased for chance of survival. In this model, he states that there are 8 basic emotions. These basic emotions are joy, truth, fear, surprise, sadness, anticipation, anger, and disgust. Secondly, he says that each primary emotion has its polar opposite. It means if you see the wheel of emotion, you will see that joy is opposite to sadness. Plus is opposite to disgust. Fear is opposite to anger. Surprise is opposite to anticipation. Likewise. Then thirdly he says that primary emotions can combine to produce complex emotions. Plutchik created the wheel of emotion which shows various relationships among emotions. For example, love is complex in a combination of joy and trust. He also says that the intensity of emotion decreases as we move outward and increase as we move toward the center. The color indicates the intensity. The darker the shade, the more intense the emotion. Example, anger is least intense. It is called as annoyance. And when it reaches at the highest level of intensity, it becomes rage. Emotion with no color shows combination of two primary emotions. For example, joy and trust combine to produce love. Plutchik states that emotions are often complex and we experience complex of emotions most of the time. His model is important for the perspectives of emotional literature. That is not only having words of emotion, but understanding how different emotions are related to one another and how they tend to change over a period of time. So we need to keep a watch on emotions, name them appropriately and address them in a healthy way to avoid triggering them in the future. The emotions which are not addressed in a healthy way can be cause of psychological problems. It may also lead to unhealthy behavior pattern in future, causing an imbalance in other aspects of person's life. So this is the Plutchik'S model of emotion. Students, coming to the next topic of today's lecture, that is 5.3, Physiological Change During Emotion. Before coming to the physiological change, let us understand the meaning of the word emotion. Emotion is a Latin word which means immovable, that is to stir up or move. According to David G., human emotion involve physiological arousal, expressive behavior, and conscious experience. So, human emotion is a combination of three things: the physiological arousal, expressive behavior, and the conscious experience. Let's understand it. It can be understood by the three terms: cognition, emotion, and connotation. Cognition, perception and interpretation of the situation causing physiological change. For example, when you hear the roar of a lion, it is a cognition. That is, you have heard and you do a perception. Your sense organs has given you perception about the sound of a lion, and you interpret that the lion is near you. This leads to certain emotions. The outward of this situation is that a person is experiencing or feeling frightened. So, the emotion that is being aroused is frightening. This leads to a cognition, a type of behavior that you express due to a fear, causing an urge to take an action. You would respond in two ways: fight or flight. And experience. You may run away for safety. Physiological change refers to an automatic reaction that takes place in a body in response to some stimulus. For example, if you saw a snake, the brain at the cognitive level perceives the stimulus as danger. Based on the knowledge that this animal is poisonous and threatens to your life, this arouse a physiological change in the form of faster heartbeat, increased pulse rate, sweating, screaming or yelling or crying. At the emotional level, you experience fear. The automatic nervous system and glandular system signal the pituitary gland, which activates the adrenal gland to secrete the cortisol hormone that trigger either a fight or a flight response. At the cognition level, action plan, run away, call for help or rushing to get an object to capture the enemy. So this is the physiological changes that arise during emotion. Students, let us see further the physiological change during emotion. Imagine a strong emotion of joy and happiness. For it, recall the most joyous moment of your life. Let's take the example of your birthday. At that time, the stimulus is highly positive. So the body releases dopamine and serotonin hormones. Both these chemicals are highly associated with happiness. You smile more, face blushes, your heart races, tingling sensation in the stomach, evaluating your mood and reducing your stress. So these are different emotions that can be expressed or experienced during the joyful moment. So strong basic emotions like happiness, sadness, fear, anger, etc. are directly linked to arousal of physiological change, which occur during especially internal and external parts. Let's see the internal things. In internal, it comes the brain, the central nervous system, the autonomous nervous system, and the glandular system. This system will experience increase in heart rate and heartbeat, blood pressure and body temperature. So, there is increase in heart rate, heartbeat, blood pressure and body temperature. At the same time, there is decrease in secretion of saliva, which leads to dryness of mouth. Again, there is increase in pulse rate, respiratory rate and expansion of chest. And there is a decrease in GI tract functioning. So, there are following increase and decrease change that take place in the internal organs, that is the brain, the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Coming to the external organ, the visceral and muscular system. There is change in the voice, volume and tone. The facial expression, the body language, stiffness in muscles. You will experience sweating on the forehead, palm, feet, wrinkles and on the forehead. You will see that the lips and the jaw alignment, redness and dilated pupil. You will experience excretions of hair on the skin and the skin temperature changes. So these are certain external organ changes during physiological arousal. So in this lecture we have studied about the Plutchik'S model of emotion, where we have seen that this model is important from the perspective of emotional literature, that is, understanding emotional level, complexity and the change as well as appropriate emotional labeling. Secondly, we have seen about the physiological change during emotion. We have seen that physiological change is an automatic reaction that takes place in our body in response to some stimulus. For example, if you saw a snake, the brain at the cognitive level perceives the stimulus and as danger. This leads to the physiological arousal as increase in heart rate or sweating. At the emotional level, you experience fear. The automatic nervous system and the glandular system signal the pituitary gland and pituitary gland gets activated. And they respond in the fight or flight response. At the cognition, that is behavior level, there is an action plan such as running away or calling for help, etc. So this is the physiological change during emotion.